Hey guys, John here. This month's preset pack is in Diva called Classic Analog, and as the name suggests, it was inspired by classic analog sounds. So with that being said, there's a little twist because it was also inspired by a certain movie where a father is trapped inside a video game and his son has to go get him. So hopefully you know what I mean by that. So let's get into these sounds here. The first one is called Arp Around Around, and one last thing before we begin, since Diva has two effects here only, keep in mind that for a lot of these patches, you're going to have to use external reverb to really get the best sound out of them. So with that being said, let's get into it with Around Around. And as you notice, some of these have some descriptions here. So this one says the delays are fun, they move around, and they move around indeed. So take a listen without the drum loop in the background here. How fun is that? Okay, moving on, we have ARP Drops of Light. So like I said here, add external reverb, which we are doing right over here. So here we go. And without the drum loop. All right, moving on. This one is one of my personal favorites of this whole pack here, called Groovy Squares, because I mean, we got to use some of the, I guess groovy might be a little bit too old. I don't know. But anyway, Groovy Squares has a groovy rhythm. Change the swing in the ARP settings to return to a regular groove. So if you want to change that, it's going to be down over here in this swing setting. So with that being said, let's take a listen to it. One just kind of makes me want to move, right? It's like when the two corners of your mouth kind of just go downwards and you kind of get that stank face, and that's kind of the feeling that this gives me here. Okay, yeah, that one is a lot of fun to play with, so let's move on here. This is going to be the fourth one, another ARP called Herzschlag, so let's take a listen to that one here. And this one is kind of meant to be played without reverb, so with that being said, let's turn off our reverb here, and you'll see why in just a second. And it's kind of nice too if you're kind of just bringing up something kind of in the beginning, kind of just setting the stage a little bit. Yeah, pretty cool one there. So moving on from that, we have leather and latex. Now, these names, they just come to me and I don't second guess it, and I just write it in. So Yeah, leather and latex kind of has a very interesting feel to it. So here in the description, it says adjust the swing and ARP settings for different feels, which you can totally do that. For pure clean ARP, enable the FM to 100% in the filter section. So we're going to do with both of these different sounds here. So this is kind of how it comes out of the box. So you kind of hear how there's kind of like a latex kind of feel to that. I guess maybe elasticity might have been a better choice of words, but with that being said, let's check out this FM here. So here's kind of to remove the elasticity. Oh my god. Let me get some low end back. And you can kind of play it anywhere between here with this FM here in the filter. You kind of get some cool different sounds as well. So you decide how much elasticity you want to play with. Okay, moving on here, Pink Sun. So this one, let's turn back our reverb because we kind of missed a couple of these without the reverb. So let's go back to latex real quick and kind of just listen to that with reverb. It kind of sounds much better with the reverb. Yeah, that one is a lot of fun to play with. So moving on from there, we have Pink Sun. So this one is a little bit more meant to be played at a slower tempo, as you'll see here in just a second. And if that one's a little bit too slow for you, you can always go down here to the ARP and go from 1/8 to 1/16, and you have something like this. So yeah, you can have either one in that sense there. So next up here, we have Scratchy and Thick with two C's spelled properly. So this one in the description, use at slower tempos and add external reverb. So we have the reverb, and let's maybe bring down our tempo. We are kind of slow at 1/8, so maybe let's go to 100 or something like that. There's almost that kind of like watery, flubby, in a good way, right? In a good flub in the low end. Like imagine how you'd feel after you ate a tub of ice cream once you're extremely depressed and you listen to this. That's probably what you sound like. Scratchy and Thick. Okay, so moving on here is the ARP called The Sun. Now this one kind of takes inspiration from said film I mentioned in the beginning here. So here we go. The Grid. And this one doesn't have a description. It's kind of just, you just play it, right? You just play the notes and it does the thing. this next one's cool because it kind of plays off that same vibe, called Trapped in the Arcade, again from the movie that I mentioned in the beginning. So here we go. Okay, so that was our section for our ARPs here. So now let's get into the bass. So for our bass, let's disable our reverb because that can get nasty pretty quick. So this one is called Big is Beautiful. So the description says this is a big, thick, and fat bass. And yes, it's PHAT, kind of bringing that back, right? Pretty hot and tempting if you didn't know that. Used with caution. So here we go. And without the drums here, it's pretty thick. If you're on a phone or something like that, or laptop speakers, it's probably very anticlimactic. So put on some headphones, put on your speakers or something like that, and listen to this patch here. It is thick, big, thick, big, fat, and beautiful. Okay, so moving on from here, we have another bass. Now, this is kind of a take on that classic bass pluck, so which is this guy over here, and the description says this is a fat bass pluck. So there you go. And without the drums here, it's pretty thick. And if you want a little bit longer of a release, if that's too quick, kind of cutting off there, you can always increase this decay over here to however long you want. Or you can have it shorter. Totally up to you. So moving on from our basses here, now we're getting into leads. So this one's called Big Jupiter, and this one's kind of a take off the Jupiter, and it's kind of big. So this one, when it comes out of the box here, I left the release a little bit longer than I normally would because it kind of gives it like a nice big, wide, whooshy-washy kind of feel, right? But if you want to change that, I put that in the description, adjust release to taste. So here we go. So let's go ahead and do that description here, just so you can kind of follow along here. So back on our main page over here, on the analog envelope over here, just drag this release and slider just down a slight bit, or kind of to your taste. Maybe something like that might be more your speed. It almost has that Tom Sawyer feel to it, right? A little bit. Today's Tom Sawyer. Right, hopefully you know what I'm saying. Okay, so moving on from here, we have Bigger is Better, and the description says huge. Without the drums here. So yeah, be careful with that one. So this next one here is called Blues Runner, and it's kind of a take off the Blade Runner blues kind of sound here a little bit. So yeah, here we go. that's always a fun one to play. More reverb, the better for this type of patch, I say. Within reason, right? Okay, so moving on here, we have another lead called Das Werk. So maybe you know this one, maybe you don't. It's going to be a little... Actually, you know what? Let's increase our tempo to kind of make this a little bit more appropriate. Maybe 120, I'm going to guess. So if anybody knows the reference to this patch, please let me know in the comments below, because it's a great song. And moving on from here, we have Echo Waves. So let's bring down our tempo back to about 108. That's kind of okay. So this one in the description says meant to be played around the delay module. If you're looking for more of a clean lead, disable the delay in effect 2, add external reverb for best results here. So with that being said, if we go to the effects here, we're using this delay 2 and it's kind of being played off this. So in that sense, you kind of want to play it a little bit slower, maybe like tempos like this or sub 100. So if you don't like all those delays, you can always disable it and you kind of basically just have a lead. So I guess it would just be waves, right? Because we're taking the taking the echo out. So moving on here, we have a couple left to go here. We have Hearts of Juno. So this is kind of a take on the Juno, obviously, and it feels with our hearts, I guess. I don't know. Here we go. And keep in mind for this one, so if we go down to main here, we have the high pass kind of high, just in case you have a bass or something like that here, because if we hit some of these low notes, we don't really get some of that sub here. So if you want some of that low end, just drag the slider down a little bit to taste. And then you can start getting down with the thickness. That's kind of that sound here. It's great for chords. And keep in mind too, since we're in Diva, we have 2 effect slots and we do not have an EQ inside this synthesizer. So with patches like this, you might want to adjust this high pass or maybe throw an EQ on it to kind of fit it around your track. Because normally I would EQ a lot of that low end out and do some different curves and stuff like that, but we're a little bit limited here in this case, which is part of the charm for sure. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind with external reverb and adding external EQ. Yeah, that one's kind of fun to play. It's very big and very bright. So, okay, this one's going to be kind of weird. So this is a stringy organ kind of thing. And while it's not my largest organ, it sure is a contender of the bunch here. So kind of an organ, but kind of stringy too. You decide. I don't know. It was kind of weird making this one here. So this is kind of the feel for that. So you hear that like almost organy sound, right? Like you almost hear it spinning. It reminds reminds me of something, but I can't place it. My brain wants to go like Backstreet Boys, but like maybe yeah, that's just like a Freudian slip there. Okay, we're going to end up on pads here, a little bit uplifting, maybe sad, depending on how you see it, but we have Pad Beyond Saturn, which is kind of a reference to a movie with Michael McConaughey, and he's way out in space. So here we go. All right, so in Jesus Christ, in the description, it says for best results, play with your soul, which is what you should always be doing. So next pad is called Electric Lights, and there is a nice sizzle at the top, winky face, which I put over here because it's kind of, but I don't know. Here we go. It's kind of almost Blade Runner-ish, right? It's like the lead kind of concept, but built into a pad with a little bit more of that brightness here. One of the main concepts while we're here is over here in the reverb is turning the dampening down as opposed to turning it up, which mostly we do, right? Because we want the reverb to kind of decay a little bit more with the higher frequencies, right? We're going for that. But this is kind of the opposite kind of approach. So it kind of leaves that almost metallic-y feeling of reverb in the air for a little bit longer than we're used to. Okay, so that was all 20. Let me know what your favorite one was through all these patches here. I'm kind of curious which ones you liked the most. And yeah, like I said, to keep external reverb handy because we only have 2 effect slots. And also EQ is going to be important for patches with Diva because we don't have an EQ built into the synthesizer. Good Lord. Anyway, if you want to get this pack, there's a link in the video description below, and it'll take you there if you would like to get it. So thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you like some patches. Maybe you don't, maybe you do. I don't know. I don't know what it is you like. So yeah, if you have any interesting recommendations for the next pack or maybe the next synthesizer that we're going to be using, let me know as well in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.